I promised myself I'd never believe in fairy tales again, she whispered, looking down at her daughter's hopeful eyes. But you deserve to see your mama try one more time. The words hung in the cold December air as Grace Bennett stood outside the upscale cafe, her hand trembling slightly as she held her 5-year-old daughter Emma's mittened fingers. Inside, through the frosted window, she could see him. Alexander Hayes, the billionaire CEO her sister had insisted she meet. One final blind date. One last attempt at believing love existed somewhere beyond bills, bedtime stories, and broken promises from Emma's father, who'd left 3 years ago. Grace had almost canceled twice. At 28, she felt decades older, worn down by single motherhood and double nursing shifts. Alexander sat alone by the window, his expensive suit somehow making him look more isolated than impressive. At 33, he'd built an empire faster than anyone expected, but couldn't build a meaningful relationship. His assistant had set up the date as a joke, a bet that he'd actually show up. Yet here he was, absently stirring cold coffee, wondering why he kept hoping for something real in a world that felt increasingly hollow. When Grace walked in, Emma clutching her worn teddy bear, Alexander's practiced smile faltered. This wasn't what he expected. The polished dating profiles, the rehearsed conversations, none of that was walking toward him. Instead, he saw exhaustion mixed with quiet dignity, and a child whose innocent gaze seemed to see straight through his expensive armor. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice soft but steady. "My babysitter canceled last minute. I understand if you want to—" "Please, sit down," Alexander interrupted gently, surprising himself. He pulled out chairs for both of them. "I'm Alexander. And who's this?" "Emma," the little girl said shyly. "Do you like hot chocolate?" Something cracked in Alexander's chest. "I used to. My mom made the best kind, with tiny marshmallows." "Mama makes it with love," Emma declared seriously. "That makes it taste better." Grace's eyes glistened. "Emma, sweetie, let's not—" "She's right," Alexander said quietly. "I'd forgotten that." He signaled the waiter, ordered hot chocolate for Emma, and for the first time in years, he didn't check his phone. The conversation unfolded slowly, naturally. Grace spoke about her work as a nurse, the double shifts, Emma's upcoming school play. Alexander listened, truly listened, in a way he couldn't remember doing before. He noticed how Grace broke her cookie into smaller pieces for Emma without thinking, how she laughed at her daughter's silly jokes with her whole heart. "Can I ask you something?" Grace said after Emma went to look at the pastry display. "Why are you really here? A man like you doesn't need blind dates." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "Because I have everything except what matters. I built my company by 29, achieved every goal I set. But I have a penthouse that echoes. I have galas where everyone knows my name, but nobody knows me. And I'm tired of pretending that's enough." His honesty caught her off guard. "I was married once. He said being a father was too hard, that we were holding him back. I was 25 when he left, so I stopped believing in men who stay. I came today because my daughter keeps praying for someone who'll love us both, and I thought maybe I owe it to her hope, if not my own." Alexander felt something shift inside him, the walls he'd built around his heart developing their first real cracks. "What if I told you I don't know how to do this, that I'm terrified of failing at the only thing that actually matters?" Grace reached across the table, her hand covering his. "Then we'd be even, because I'm terrified too." Over the following weeks, Alexander didn't court Grace with money or grand gestures. Instead, he showed up. He came to Emma's school play, sitting in the back row with flowers. He learned to make hot chocolate with love, burning the first 3 attempts while Emma giggled. He listened when Grace cried about an elderly patient she'd lost, holding her without trying to fix everything. Grace watched this powerful man get down on the floor to play dolls with her daughter. She saw him carry Emma when she fell asleep during their walk in the park. She noticed how he asked about her dreams, not just her day. And slowly, carefully, she let herself believe again. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning in Alexander's no longer empty penthouse, Emma was showing him her drawings while Grace made breakfast. Alexander looked at this beautiful, chaotic scene, crayon marks on his expensive table, laughter replacing silence, and he realized he'd finally found his home. "Grace," he said softly as she brought pancakes to the table. She stiffened slightly, old fears surfacing. "I love you," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "Not the idea of you, not the convenience of you, but you, your strength, your kindness, the way you see the world. And I love Emma like she's my own because she is in every way that counts. I know I'm late to your story, but if you'll let me, I want to be here for every chapter that's left." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "I was so afraid to hope." "Hope is terrifying," Alexander agreed, kneeling down beside Emma's chair. "But it's also the bravest thing we can choose. Emma, would it be okay if I stayed? Not just for today, but for always." Emma looked at her mother, then at Alexander, her small face serious. "Will you love Mama, even when she's tired and grumpy?" "Especially then," he promised. "And will you love me, even though I'm not really your daughter?" Alexander's voice broke. "Emma, you became my daughter the moment you asked me if I liked hot chocolate. I just needed time to catch up." A year later, on a snowy December evening remarkably like their first meeting, Alexander and Grace stood in that same cafe, now with rings on their fingers. Emma, in a flower girl dress, pressed her nose against the window where they'd once sat as nervous strangers. Grace leaned into her husband's embrace. "Do you remember what I said that first day, about never believing in fairy tales?" "I remember," Alexander whispered. "You said you'd try one more time. I'm glad you did." "Me too," Grace smiled. "Because the best fairy tales aren't about perfect people. They're about broken people who chose to be brave enough to let someone in." Emma tugged on Alexander's sleeve. "Daddy, can we get hot chocolate now?" He lifted her up, his eyes meeting Grace's over her daughter's head, both of them understanding that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with fireworks, but with a tired single mother, a lonely billionaire, and a little girl who believed in both of them before they believed in themselves. In the end, it wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone willing to stay, to build something real from the beautiful mess of being human. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.